This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everyone, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I just got some analytics today from Spotify, and one of the more notable mentions is that the show is in the top 10% most shared on the Spotify platform. Couldn't do it without you. Thanks so much for making that happen. Really appreciate it. Now, the guest on this episode of the show is Scott Kirkland. He's the fella at the centre of the Crystal Method. He's an LA-based DJ. He's been going now for almost 30 years or thereabouts. Now, the catalyst for the chat with Scotty is due to an Australian tour that is happening in early to mid-December. I won't read out all of the dates because, as I've said before, I have bugger all listeners in Australia, and unless you're planning on travelling to Australia for the gigs, I won't read them out. That's the point. Go across the gig guides if you're in Australia and check out the dates in major cities. Now, this chat here is notable because Scotty dives into his thoughts and impressions on his mini collaborations with luminaries from the world of rock and metal. I'm talking Tom Morello, Scott Weiland, John Garcia from Chaos, Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit, Jason Lytle from Grandaddy, Peter Hook from Joy Division, and Justin Chancellor from Tool. That's really interesting, his conversation about his relationship with Justin Chancellor. They're very good mates. Also in there too is some banter about Milla Jovovich, you know, the actress from The Fifth Element. She was a musician for a bit too. I don't know what other work she's done, I haven't looked it up, but he certainly collaborated with her at one point in time. Now, I have picked a tune for you before we kick into the conversation. This one features Wes Borland. It's taken from the album Legion of Boom. It is titled Weapons of Mass Distortion. Once it's done, we'll dive into the chat. Let's go.
Hey.
Hey, mate. How you going?
Hey, how's it going? Good. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Sorry about that. Zoom's being a bit funny at the moment. They've changed something with it. I've been using the same link now for about 18 months or so, but they've decided to make it a bit more complicated than just using the one link all of the time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it is, yeah. How's the calls and the promo been going for this tour?
They've been going really well. There seems to be some genuine enthusiasm, and from those I've talked to, and some people that I know down there. So that matches my enthusiasm. So that's great.
Does it surprise you that you got as much interest as has been generated for this tour in Australia?
Pleasantly surprised, I guess. Just we've always had a solid following, and have had some successful plays over there, the 2 big day outs and a couple of our own tours, and so I just remember going back to the first time we played there back in 98, early 98, and having not been there before, so going through that process of being in this wonderful magical place, and then having the response that we had, and and that has continued to evolve and grow, and I just know that Australia is just and New Zealand, they just have they have great fans, very enthusiastic, and also just very appreciative of any of the artists that take on the challenge to go down there, which is and are able to show up, and so it's always felt that there's been a real appreciation, and that they tend to go out and support those that make the trek down there.
Trip down, yeah. I think we do that. You're right, and I think there is a level of appreciation. I remember the 90s. 1998 is a good year actually to sort of bring up, because that was a year where we didn't get. You probably had more happen in a month these days than what you had happen in a year back then in terms of international tours and the like. The only time a lot of artists came down was for the big day out or V Festival or whatever it might have been that was put on back then. But 1998, was your impressions of Australia back then that it was very different from the United States?
Well, I mean, it different, just, as far as, geography and landscape and that sort of thing. But I mean, as far as the weather, I mean, obviously I grew up in Las Vegas, and then I've been in Southern California for a while. So, so being down there in summer, for our winter, that was obviously, odd, but living in California right now, it's, I'm sitting in my car. It's like 60 degrees. The sun's out. It's a wonderful day. And so we don't really experience a lot of the really drastic weather that some of the other parts of the country experience this time of year. So, but yeah, just I felt that again there was it felt very welcoming. It was obviously very beautiful, and the different things that we were able to do that first time, and then subsequent visits down there has allowed me to and Ken when he was still in the band to really appreciate any opportunity we have to visit and take full advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Now, just talking about the upcoming tour. Now, are you bringing down a show, so to speak, or is it a DJ set?
It's a DJ set, but I bring a sampler with me, and then I also have a bunch of things that I, especially for this one, I've curated different mixes and been building out tracks, and you'll hear versions of classic tracks, but they'll be different than the ones I had played out previously. Even if you had heard a set online, there's a lot of new updates of classics, and you know, I really wanted to, you know, it's touring live is tricky, you know. I mean, definitely you can do more now. You know, a laptop can run the whole show, but I've always loved the idea of you know, having, you know, synths and different things with me rather than just, you know, sitting with a laptop and a controller. So I've been working on a live set, of course. Now that I'm one, that's also makes it a little trickier than before, you know, because Ken and I had those duties of playing stuff live but yeah, but it's my my performance and my energy is very much like ones of the past where I was performing live. I'm very in the moment. I tend to, you know, I have a big group of things that I know that I want to play, but then I use the opportunity to sort of try to ride my ADHD and my natural adrenaline drop that I get. So I can, you know, I usually like to have 3 or 4 decks, so I can, you know, I can string things along, introduce things, bring things back, you know, and really do something that is definitely unique for that night, but also brings out a lot of the classics and familiarity that people, you know, have with the music. I mean, I will be playing other things, but there's a lot of stuff that's going to be very familiar and really reminiscent of the catalog. And of course, you know, updating things as you know, as I've done over in the studio over the last 3 or 4 years since Ken's been gone, but specifically I've done a bunch of things for this tour. So I'm really working on it and really excited to get out there and play it.
Look, I'm a musician, and God knows I've had a few catastrophic failures on stage with gear and equipment I'm talking about. But I'm a bassist, so, you know, the bass sort of cuts out playing. You know, you got the rest of the instruments that keep on going. But have you had that happen where the laptop has just gone boom and you just sat there?
Yeah. I mean, it's I remember we had well, nowadays, again, there's that now they've figured out the fail-safe way of having 2 rigs running at the same time, but we didn't understand that. I don't think that was something that, you know, we knew or that was possible, or at least we didn't discover it. So there have been times where, you know, in the middle of the set, you know, with the laptop. I think there was like an install issue. Like, I think it was something that corrupted the drive, and after 3 or 4 times over a 10 day, you know, span of shows where something was happening, we started to realize that, you know, we should use my laptop on my side, because we both had laptops, but Ken's was running the show and mine was triggering samples and all that stuff. But I still had a backup, but so it wasn't as seamless as it can be done today with that sort of you know, identical rigs running, and as soon as the signal goes out, the other one switches over. But with live instruments like a bass or a keyboard or drums, if something goes out, then the rest of the band can continue forward. And so you know, before we would use a lot of samplers. So we had I think we had a total of 6 E4s on stage, you know, triggering, you know, chunks and loops and with the MPC, and then we ended up, you know, then following into the, you know, the laptop thing, and, you know, using, you know, Contact and things like that, and soft synths and the like. So, but I do kind of miss those days of, you know, just having, all that sample, all those samplers out there, and then triggering it live, because even though those sometimes failed as well, it wasn't as destructive and interruptive as what happens when you're performing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Hey, I'll broaden the chat a little bit, and I'll start looking at your career from a retrospective. The Tweekend, that was released via Geffen. Is there a story about how you got signed to Geffen? Because you were with them for one album.
Well, we were actually, we were signed to Outpost, which was a label that was started by three very influential people in the music business. One of them was Scott Litt, who did produced all the REM records, mixed Nirvana, was just a really prolific producer. And then Andy Gershon, who managed the Smashing Pumpkins and other bands, and then Mark Williams, who signed the Pumpkins and other bands. So they created Outpost, but that was under Universal, which was the big company that and then Geffen was, I don't know exactly when Geffen was absorbed in the Universal, or if it was always Geffen with Universal distribution, but and then Vegas came out, and we had some success with that, and we're in the studio making Tweekend, and where we realized that there's all this turmoil going on over there, and Outpost, their deals were basically bought out, and then we were absorbed into Geffen from that, and a lot of the same people that worked with us on Vegas, as far as radio promotion and marketing and things like that, they all, some of them are again under this bigger company, so things were absorbed. I think we did. I believe, our A&R guy, John Seidel, stayed, was with us. Maybe he wasn't. I can't remember, but yeah, and then Tweekend came out, and although we had a great deal of success with that, and also great videos and a great tour and everything, they were evolving in out of. Again, that was sort of the bubble for electronica was kind of waning, was kind of deflating a bit, and things were like more Korn and Limp Bizkit and the sort of rap
Linkin
rock.
Park,
Linkin Park was another big one that had these combinations of hip hop influence, and then rock singers. So at some point, we just said, I think it was wild, because our manager Richard just went to him and said, we were all recouped. We were, everything was fine. We were, in the black and having, and we're working on the next album, and we just came to a mutual agreement that we would just part ways, which doesn't always happen, So then we were able to, then produce our own albums and distribute them through connections or deals that we made outside of the album of making the album making process. So we would just go in and make the album, and then find someone to release it. Now, I would have, if Outpost wasn't dissolved and the roster wasn't distributed around into Geffen or Universal, I would have loved to stay with one label, just because you have the continuity and you have that relationship that goes forward, and that it's like a family situation. But again, that was the time when a lot of deals were being done, and the industry was changing. We went from we were right at the end of people buying albums, and then Tweekend, that was right at the beginning of everything changing over. So that's what Napster and that kind of stuff started to happen. So there was just there's a big change in the industry, and so we sort of just worked through it however we felt was the best way at the time. But yeah, it was a good run with them, and I still every once in a while run into people that that were part of those two albums, and so it was a wonderful 5 or 6 years there where we were running with the big boys, and they were being very supportive of us.
Yeah, sweet. Okay. Look, something else that's been notable across your journey is the amount of collaborators, and notable collaborators, as in big ones, household names we're talking about. So Tom Morello, Scott Weiland in particular, that's a big name there. Someone who was very left of centre, who I had to dive into your catalogue to discover he'd worked with, is Jason Lytle from Grandaddy as well. But I just want to focus on some of the bigger names first. How were you introduced to people like Tom Morello?
Well, we obviously were very aware of Rage and Tom Morello, and we're massive fans, and I think we had a mutual friend said, "Oh, I was talking to Tom, and I told him I was going to be, talking to you, and he sends his best, and would and said he was a fan, and then immediately it was like, what? Okay, let's explore that." So and being in LA, having our own studio, and he just we hung out, and then next thing you know, he's bringing his guitar and amp to our little bomb shelter studio, which was basically a little studio that was built inside a 2-car garage that was attached to this small little house in a suburb of Los Angeles called La Crescenta. So, and it was just janky. It was, it was not a pro studio, and, we're setting up his amp in the kitchen, and, he's, working, bringing his stuff in through the house. And, it had a real, kind of, intimate, very, yeah, do it yourself vibe. But he appreciated that. And we just hit it off. He's a savant, and he just sat there and started warming up, and played the Name of the Game riff, like, just from his own, from his own subconscious. And, it took him, because we were like, what was that thing you just played? And he's like, what? I don't know. And we were smart enough to put a DAT and start recording. And then he did happen to do it again. And then, he went away and came back the next day, and we had this structure for this track that became Name of the Game. And then we went on and he co-produced and played on 3 songs on Tweekend, and we've been friends ever since. Scott Weiland, I can't remember exactly how we actually never met him. We talked to him on the phone. His process was much different than Tom's. It was he had his own guy, his own studio guy that he trusted and he would work with. And I think this was even like this on all his projects, where he would go in with his guy and record separately. And at least that was our experience. He wasn't comfortable coming into the studio, and wasn't comfortable with us meeting up. He felt that the best way to go to do a creative process at that time was for us to send him stuff, and then he would send us stuff back, and then we would send him stuff, and then he'd send us stuff back. And so we didn't actually even meet him face to face until many years later, when his band, what was his, my brain. Yeah, I knew it. I kept thinking Stone Roses in my head, but Stone Temple Pilots, STP. When they had separated and they had come back together. And this was about 2 or 3 years, maybe 2 years before his untimely passing. But and again, it was real brief. Oh, hey, how's it going? Hey, he was battling his demons, and his personality was such that didn't necessarily match up with some of the other people that we worked with, but the results were still positive, and we we're real happy with the way that whole album and that song in particular turned out.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, another guitarist that you work with you worked with more than once is Wes Borland. You actually, I was even say you collaborated with him across Legion of Boom.
Yeah, we played this show together where we performed this massive big gaming championship event at Staples Center, and he had his cool costume on and his outfit on. That was one where we actually did. We had actually started working on a song for a movie score, and the song that we started that song didn't make it into that song, which was Weapons of Mass Distortion. That song didn't make it into the movie, so we then put that on Legion of Boom, and then subsequently we had he sent over a riff that he had played, and then we built that out to be Born Too Slow. So yeah, he's someone I run into from time to time, and he's one of those guys that I'd love to get back in the room with at some point. We have a lot of mutual friends, so at some point that would be I'd really enjoy that, because he just has a unique style and one that I think really works well with the Crystal Method sound.
Yeah, great. Yeah, somebody else who appeared on that album was Milla Jovovich. So of course she's an actress. Yeah, tell me about her.
Well, that was that. I'm trying to remember how that encounter, how we met her, but we had discussed. Well, she invited us over to her place, and because we had talked about doing something, and so we went over to her place, and she just played this song on acoustic guitar, and beautiful voice, and beautiful, really cool track. And we thought, yeah, this would be fantastic. We went back to our studio and started to set up, had some things going for the song that we assumed that she was going to come in and share, and we were going to develop. But when she did come in, she said, "Oh, well, I'm going to," because she was going out with John Frusciante at the time. And so and so he was like, "No, let's, I want to do that song with you." So he, at least this is my memory of what happened. So that song was now off the table, and we were and she had really limited time because she was obviously very busy. So that session that we had planned to work on that song, we sort of were scrambling. And so we had this other idea that we were working on, and we were, we were trying to come up with lyrics and a melody for it. And she had done a bunch of melody stuff that we were working on, as far as like, that we would maybe hopefully develop into, lyrics and flesh out as a track. But she didn't have the time, and we weren't able to get back together again. So, but we had all these great takes from her performance when she was in the studio. And so I at some point there wasn't any words. There was just humming and just sort of finding the melody for the song. And so at some point we went in there and I just like, well, what if we just were playing with it and editing in it and doing some tricks with effects, and I think we reversed her vocal, and then we it became I Know It's You, which was a track that we had a great deal of fun of playing out, and one that we really liked the way it turned out. But it felt there was some it could have been something different. Again, you never know where the song's going to go when you're working with someone, especially someone that you don't really know that well, and then someone that is as busy as she was at the time, and still is seemingly. So she was wonderful, really great experience. And again, as time went on, we realized that we knew a lot of the same people, and so there were. It turned out. I'm really happy the way it turned out. But I sometimes sort of think, well, what if that that other track would have been could have been developed, because I think that a lot of people don't really know just how she's talented she is, as far as her voice and her her whole vibe is something that obviously comes across in film, but she's got that whole other side of her that I don't know if a lot of people have had a chance to see.
Yeah, no, agreed. No, I didn't even know she was with John Frusciante. There you go. He's a very interesting cat indeed, that bloke. He's got a very they were together for a short time, but yeah, that was a long time ago. But when she said, "Oh no, John wants to do that song," and we're like, oh, okay. Well, he's got the definitely, you're like, oh, that loser, what is he going to do with it? That super talented, savant guitar player. What, it was sort of like, slightly blindsided by that at that moment. But we scrambled and we figured it out, and we came up with something. So, yeah. And then that song, went on to be licensed in, I think, one of her film projects. So I think one of the Evil Dead or one of the where she's fighting some zombies or something she's kicking ass somewhere, and I think that song was either in the trailer or something for one of those. But yeah, that was one that we another one of those that came together for Legion of Boom. Yes, Legion of Boom had John Garcia from Caius. Yes. With there's a version of Weapons of Mass Distortion that was from that album that was talking about with Wes, that where John heard the song after the album came out, and actually sent over a vocal that he had written. Oh, but he had only said he didn't send over the stems for the vocal. He just sent over his singing over it, and we were unable to create that version, a proper version of it. But I just recently came across that when I was going through a bunch of stuff for this tour, and I've done my best to make it, sort of work as sonically as best it can. I don't know if I'm going to play it, but because out of context, it doesn't really, people would have to, I think one of those songs you'd have to, really hear, and, hearing it one time in an environment wouldn't necessarily do it justice. But yeah, it's one that I came across, a little hidden gem that was really a great, had a lot of great potential. But there seems to be, as I go through some old DATs and some old hard drives, and I come across these things that we worked on. It's funny how things you can you make and you spend time on, and then all of a sudden years go by and you discover it, and oh, why didn't I work on that, or why didn't I finish that? You as a musician probably knows that better than anybody, that there's all this stuff that you didn't know was special, or you didn't think much of it. I mean, that's kind of why it's always great having a partner or somebody there to hit record. Yeah. I mean, the classic story of Start Me Up,
with Keith Richards, like basically almost, passing out is at the end of a session and just starts playing, but they're always recording. And so, and then, come in the next day and like, oh yeah, that thing you did last night at the end. The same thing with Tom Morello and the guitar riff for Name of the Game. And like, always have something going when these people that are oozing with creative talent and that special because you never know when something magic's going to come out. So always got to record and always got to go back through the sessions and see what you can find.
Agreed. Yeah. Now with Jason Lytle, were you a fan of Grandaddy? Is that how that association came about?
Yeah, we had the same manager, and I was a fan of his style, and he's got I love like that, Death Cab for Cutie, real soft, melodic, layered, vocal. So he was one that he was living in a different state up in Washington. And I was another one of those where we weren't in the same room. We were just trading things back and forth. Yeah, that's another one that I've always wanted to redo that song. I love the way it turned out and the way it fit on the record, but it's kind of like, I sometimes suffer from the George Lucas syndrome, where you like, oh, I wish I could have done that better or differently. Yeah. And then you could go in and actually do that. And I have, that was one that I've been thinking about as well, as far as like just layering the vocal over something else, and just because it's a beautiful atmospheric, delivery and performance that in the way that I perform these shows works really well, because I'm real aggressive, but then I pull back and I like breathers and the dynamics of things. I don't just want to hit somebody over the head at the same tempo for 2 hours. I like to, ebb and flow and change, tempos and change directions and surprise myself sometimes, because again, like I said, when I'm playing it, I'm, you have a finite amount of time, to come up with something. And so having multiple decks allows me to like cue up something that I know is going to work, have an idea, like, my brain starts to like go through the Rolodex, like, and this one would be good. Cue that one up, play that one right now. That actually works, but I'm going to wait for it to come in this section. And over here, I'm going to play this one I was going to play. And then, and then as I'm getting out of the one, I loop something over here and I keep that going. And then I'm bringing the other track and I've looped this one over here. And then I'm changing the pitch. And so it's a real organic modular way of not that that I do something unique. I mean, I the best DJs that I've ever seen do that same, will have that process where they, they have an idea of what they're going to play, but they're, doing stuff by bringing these albums and these songs, these tracks together and creating something new in the middle. And I think that's one of the, the favorite sets I've ever seen. It was many, many years ago. It was a disco. It was like back early 90s when disco was kind of having a resurgence, and especially here in Los Angeles, there was a club called Club 1970, and there was a DJ named Billy Limbo who would play at this club, and it was only 70s music. They only played 70s music, but it wasn't just disco; it was rock as well. And he played "Love to Love You, Baby." Over the top of the middle of Whole Lot of Love, where like when it breaks down to oh, love to love you, baby. And I was just like, I was probably chemically enhanced at that moment, but I was also just like, holy shit, like these two things from two completely different worlds coming together and sounding so natural together. That's another, the magic of the mashup and being able to have access to stems and different things over the years that people have been able to reinterpret these things and reshape them and deliver them to an audience that maybe wasn't familiar with both songs. But then at that moment, these things come together and you found something new from that. So, I've always, a lot of DJs now, they slam, they play a song and then get out of it, play a song and they get out of it. It's like, that works. There's definitely, that's definitely something, that people, especially people nowadays with shorter attention spans, they like to, they'd rather hear 5 songs in 3 minutes or 5 minutes than, 1 or 2 songs in that same amount of time. But for me, I like to, what if I create something new in the middle of those two or 3 songs that, again, has that flow and create something new. And really I'm always, I try to make a connection with the crowd, by making myself happy. So if I'm like, I always want to be the one that is, because I always like when I go into shows, I always, especially the anticipation, you get the ticket, you get there early, you get the drink, you want to, and then the performer comes out, you always want that guy or that person or that woman that artist to like look like they're having fun or look like they're really into it and they're in the moment, because they may be doing 30 shows on this tour, but you want them to be there present for you at that moment. So I've always appreciated that. And that's what I always feel is the best way for me to make a connection is to be completely, enthralled in the moment and have this opportunity to play for people and have, as much or more fun than anybody else in the room.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, nicely put there. Yeah. What about you collaborated with 2 very good bass players in Peter Hook and Justin Chancellor as well. So tell me about them.
Well, Hookie is by far one of my my favorite artists, bass players. What he did with Bernard and the band, still it will forever be, a soundtrack to many, many years of my life, and will still to this day take me back to those moments. There are many of those songs are in my, the Never Let Me Down playlist, including Never Let Me Down from Depeche Mode. But there's those songs that you can listen to, sad, happy, indifferent, and they'll always cheer you up and always make you feel something and connect you with the song. So we met, we had met their manager, Tom Atencio. I think our manager was friends with him, and we had met him a couple times out and throughout the, we'd love to. Also we did a remix for, we did a remix for Bizarre Love Triangle, that we heard that Peter Hook, appreciated and liked. And this is after the band had left the band. Yeah. So he happened to he was coming to LA, and we set up a session, and he came in and couldn't have been, cooler and fucking, more, Hooky, like in his his energy and because again, he's like, for me, seeing them many times and just seeing him, his low strong, he's just got that bass like laying low, and he's got his legs spread apart, and he's just got that, he's like the coolest dude in the fucking, in the building. And of course, melodically, what he does, to be able to watch, to be in the room for his process. So his basic process is like, doesn't want to hear the song until he gets in there. Give him a couple takes. He'll give you a couple takes. Maybe you can, I think it was like you could, maybe request one or more. it was just so free flow. It was like, he just kind of, it was just watching him just, make a connection from his perspective, hearing the song for the first time. And then it was just this, endlessly, creative, appetizing, appealing, like buffet of hooks and melodies and things that were there for us to choose from later on. So again, and there was so much there, and that we were able to, I think we did two songs with him, but yeah, he's a hero and truly one of the icons of for me and my musical my life connection with his music is something that I'll always have. But then Justin is someone I met him on a Big Day Out tour.
Oh, really? Okay.
We were on that Big Day Out in 2009. They were the headliners, and I met him after. I met him in the airline club in Auckland, and we were bitching about the Bloody Marys, how shitty the Bloody Mary mix was. And then Tool was very mysterious, to me. I didn't, of course I knew their music, but I didn't know what any of them looked like. I didn't, or didn't necessarily recognize him because, he had the long hair at the time, and then he, was pulled back and very casually dressed. It wasn't like he looked more like a roadie than a rock star. So I actually, that's what I thought, because I knew that he had the Tool, after I think it was after, so we met at the airline lounge, and then after, a show up in the what's that kind of sunny part of northern sort of like, it reminds me of Florida.
Gold Coast.
Gold Coast, yeah, Gold Coast, yeah.
That's where I'm from.
So
that's where I live. That's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah. So they have those Big Day Out, always have those parties after the shows, and so there was I remember it was in some hotel or the lobby or in the hotel that they had cordoned off or whatever, but and I ended up, talking to him again, and I didn't realize again till deep into the conversation that again, I thought he was I thought he was the roadie, but well, then it turns out that his wife and Crystal Method she used to work for our manager, so we had this connection, and we hung out for the rest of that tour and been best of mates ever since. So we've done a lot of things in the studio. There's lots of magic sitting on magic sitting on hard drives. There's tons of that stuff that we have to work on, and we've done a couple remixes together. The one most notably, I don't think I was credited properly on it, but it was this remix we did for Foles. I think if you look it up, it's credited just as Justin Chancellor because of whatever the mishap or whatever, and when it was sent in. But Bandwidth was our little project that we were doing together, and so that track, Cabin Pressure from the trip home, was just one of those moments when I was we were able to take his phenomenal performance and style and work it into one of the tracks from that album. But again, there's so much more to come, and we're cool. we're he's one of my favorite people on the planet.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. What about on the wish list? It sounds like you can pretty much perform with you perform with some extremely notable musicians there, but who's on the bucket list, so to speak? I've always it's one of those things where I do prefer like the being in the same room. I mean, you do get there is something that can happen that's very rewarding and creatively appealing by doing sessions where you're sending tracks and different things to other people. But I really do appreciate the in the room vibe that you can that happens, and like the Tom Morello situation, because it just there's a lot of
give and take, and there's just those moments when you can go, oh yeah, do this, or what about if you try that, or that thing that you were just, playing over there, what was that? So, I've always, Time Machine, I'd love to, go, like PJ Harvey has always been one of my favorites. There's musicians that are, like Justin and Wes, and that I love to work with. Again, my good friend Danny Lohner and I have been working on a couple projects together that hopefully will see the light of day sometime soon. And I did something, on Billy Howardell's latest project. So hopefully we can do something together in the future. I just did a little keyboard part. It wasn't anything that special, but we've hung out a couple of times. And, my thing is that I want to work and create with cool, kind, generous people. I'm not into, having to, work. Working in the sense of like drawing something out of somebody.
What you're saying, though. You don't want to have to labor it and work with dickheads. Yeah. So there are a lot of people out there that I'm fans of and would love to have that opportunity, but you just never know. You never want to meet your heroes and have them disappoint you, or find a way to fuck something up that didn't need to be fucked up. So I there's a lot of projects that I've got cooking right now for the next album, and some things that I really excited to flesh out, including the stuff with Danny and some more stuff with Justin, and just seeing where it takes me, creatively, spiritually, with enthusiasm and finding a way forward that, is rewarding and it doesn't cause too much pain and suffering. That's a good way of putting it. So talking about pain and suffering, Ozzy Osbourne, did you actually work with him on that Vapor Trail song on the Chef Aid soundtrack?
And no, that was all Rick Rubin. There's some they could make a whole documentary just on that, the creation of that song. And I would love to see it, because I've only heard the various things that went into getting old Dirty Bastard and DMX into the studio to record those parts. But no, it was we had a connection with Trey Parker because we had a song in his Orgasmo movie, and then I can't, it was just one of those things that we were kind of one of those it bands at that moment when they were making that Chef Aid project, and they took the track Vapor Trail, and we sent them the stems for that, and then it just turned into this, mammoth, over the top, again, like full on, behind the music documentary kind of track with Ozzy and I was just talking to Loner, that's still one of his favorite tracks. I'd still like, if I ever, that'd be the first thing. I've always got it queued up. If I ever have the opportunity to meet Rick Rubin, I would go into, that would be the first thing I would ask him about. But actually Fuzz Bubble, who was also credited on that, is another artist, is Richard Fortas, who's in Guns N' Roses. He was also part of that project. So I had heard some stuff because I'm friends with him, and he's another one that I've got a bunch of stuff, that we've started and that I'd want to continue, because he's one of those guys that's super talented and just super lovely human being. So, but yeah, that's one of those that, I just truly a phenomenal collaboration of epic proportions when it comes to the Ozzy and Old Dirty Bastard and DMX. It's truly one of those things that I'd love to be a fly on the wall. I've heard lots of things about it, bags of money and and being exchanged, and DMX getting out of going directly from a New York jail after some sodomy charge. I don't know. Or maybe that was just, he was talking about sodomizing somebody in the song, I think that was one of the, so, yeah. And then there was the whole thing, in the Old Dirty Bastard part where he's talking about, take a picture. He had this whole, when he was on many different substances, like, he thought that taking a picture of him was stealing a bit of his soul. So that, I think those are the lyrics that come out in that song. So, I mean, if you're, put some headphones on and sit back and listen to the lyrics of those songs, of that song. And just, it's quite phenomenal. And Ozzy he's like on you could tell that he's riffing off. So DMX did his vocal first, and then Ozzy, and then Old Dirty Bastard. So you could tell that there's that Ozzy's kind of got the rhythm. So he's, and then ain't nowhere to run. It's a wicked track. Yeah, it's a wicked track.
You've had an epic career and a journey so far, so it'll be interesting to watch from afar and see where you go over the next few decades.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. It's I've definitely been someone that's been very fortunate to have made the friends and the connections and that I've made, and including the most important one being with Ken, and the music that we were able to make for 20 years together, and now on my own with him giving me obviously the blessing to go forward, and it's just I'm very fortunate to be able to have a career, let alone a career that's lasted 5 years, let alone 25 years. So because it's a brutal business, and there's just again, that's why I've just been this tour coming back down there again. It's been postponed for 2 years now, obviously due to COVID. So I'm sorry that I'm not getting up to the Gold Coast on this leg, but hopefully I'll do well enough to where I can come back again in the future.
Next time, indeed. Yeah. Well, thanks very much for the chat, mate. You give me some great insight there. People are going to love hearing about these associations that you've had over the years, in addition to gaining some deeper insight into the inner workings behind your songs. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk, and again, like I said, anytime I'm in the area, you're in this area, look me up, and we'll continue this conversation. But thanks for taking the time, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, good luck with the tour, and thanks very much again.
Cheers. Thanks,
mate. Catch ya. So there he is. I love that conversation with Scott. A bit different for the show, but I'm all about variety in and amongst all of the usual hard rock, heavy metal, extreme metal, all the usual stuff. Now, you probably already know, but I have released a book. It's Christmas too, so you might want to download it for yourself or gift it to a friend, member of the family. Go across to scarsandguitars.com, click on the link in the banner, and you'll be taken to a marketplace. You can read all about it, but I've got some more information to share with you about the book in the moment. Before we do that, though, I want to bid you a fond farewell. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. Until next time, it is a very goodbye for now.
This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Coal Chamber and why the band will never return.
You know, if you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words there. Sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Coal Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, you know, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not going to be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, you know, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing, complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuck Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
You know, my name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot.
And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.